is Aiste Ptakowski, and I welcome you to this webinar on transformative and experiential learning, organized by the Vilnius Tech Faculty of Creative Industries and the creative enterprise, the Ethnic Kitchen Consulting. Today, we are joined by a special guest from the Brigham Young University in the United States, Dr. Marianna Richardson, who will talk to us about a couple of cases from her own practice, portraying how she uses transformative and experiential learning in her classroom. She will also be joined by two of her students, Jake and Parker, who will speak about their experience with transformative and experiential learning methods from the student point of view. Dr. Richardson, would you like to introduce your students?
So I have Jake Conlon, who is our podcast team lead. Our podcast name is Measuring Success Right. And I also have Parker Gardner, who is our managing editor of our journal and our blog. And and those are called Marriott Student Review and the Marriott Saturday Reads. So he will also be talking. So we do both written, but also the podcast as well.
Okay, great. So welcome, Parker and Jake. Thank you very much for joining us at this early hour for you. And I think we're ready to start. So whenever you're ready, Dr. Richardson.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to thank you for letting me come and speak about something that I feel so passionately about, because I do feel very strongly about the importance of experiential learning, especially as we're talking at a university level. Oftentimes, especially as university professors, we have a tendency sometimes to be the talking head. And I have taught many classes that has been kind of the norm. But I found that as I've brought more and more experiential learning into my classroom, what a difference it's made, not only in my love for teaching students, but also in the way my students have also said that they've enjoyed the classroom experience. I wanted to start out today a little bit of an agenda. I am going to just talk a little bit, more foundationally about some of the people that I look to in terms of the research that's been done experientially. And so I want to talk about the research and the background and the foundation for why we do experiential learning. But then most of the time we're going to be talking about practically, how have I used this in the classroom, specifically with Marriott Student Review and also Measuring Success Right. So to start out with, when we talk about experiential learning theories, for me, the first person that I think of is John Dewey and some of the work that he's done in experience in education. This is way back in University of Chicago in the early 1900s. But we're going to talk a little bit more about him, about Kolb's experiential learning cycle and the different phases of that cycle. Morris has the 5 characteristics of a concrete learning experience. This is probably the latest, and I really like Morris's article. We'll talk a little more about that. And then Mezirow has transformative learning theory, which is very much the reason why we do experiential learning. So to start out with, John Dewey has said, example is notoriously more potent than precept. And one of the things that he talks very much in a lot of his writings is that we talk a lot about traditional learning and progressive learning. And his point is we should take away those labels, that instead of thinking of these two things as being opposites, we should bring them both together. Even in an experiential learning environment, there's going to be times where the professor will need to teach. You know, we will need to come in and explain and to help, and to even sometimes give a short little lecture where we help them understand how to do something. And so bringing these two together, understanding it's not just all one or all the other, is something that Dewey was very strong about, but he completely believed in experiential learning, and that he really felt strongly that the student should be the one that leads the learning rather than the other way around. Kolb in 1980s came up with this experiential learning cycle. And it's kind of the basis of a lot of experiential learning and what we do. You start with a concrete experience, something that you want the students to do. And then you have this reflective observation. And I think this is critical. I know in our class, what we've done is at the very beginning of the semester, the students write up a goal. You know, they have to write all the goals, the things that they want to accomplish that semester. And then at the end of the semester, their final in my class is that they have to write up a report and come back and say, all right, how did you do? You know, how did you accomplish all the things that you wanted to accomplish this semester? And then along with that, I have them also give themselves a grade. So it's the nicest grading opportunity ever. I love it because I think grading is one of the things that I think is the hardest. But then I also review that with them. And I also have one-on-one interviews during the semester as well to see how they're doing. So it's not just at the beginning, at the end, but during the semester, I also have one-on-one interviews with them to ask them how they're doing, how are they feeling about the class, but also how they feel about their goals. Then you have this idea of abstract conceptualization. And this is where at the beginning, you know, you have this concrete experience and oftentimes the students have no idea how to do this. This is something they've never done before. And so they have the opportunity to change not only abstract conceptualization in terms of the learning, but also the learning about themselves. They gain an understanding of, I can do this. You know, it gives them self-confidence. It gives them the opportunity to be able to look ahead in the things that they're accomplishing. And then active experimentation. You know, it's the things that we do are not perfect. I don't expect it to be perfect. It's a learning experience. And so I try to, unless there's a huge mistake that's going to embarrass the university, I make sure that, and that's my main job, is just to make sure that things are done so that, you know, the university will be happy. But during this active experimentation stage, I also allow mistakes to happen. We had, I know early on, we had a wonderful designer who was designing our journal. And we had people looking at it, editing it, you know, everything. But in one of the titles, we had a typo. And it was very embarrassing. And so she took every single one of those copies and actually made stickers that she put on every single issue before she turned it in. Now, that was a lot of work to fix that mistake. But what a great learning experience, you know, for her to realize we need to make sure that things are done correctly. But sometimes you make a mistake and that's okay. We just work on it and fix it. Transformative learning is very similar, but I do like this idea of a disorienting dilemma. I think all too often when we're starting, we want to fix things. You know, we don't want our students to feel bad in any way. But sometimes when you throw them something and don't give them the answer right away, allow them the opportunity to struggle. You know, I think that's another positive thing that they're able to experience, that they can struggle, they cannot know how to do this, and then figuring it out, this critical thinking and questioning, they're not in it alone, that you allow them the opportunity to think and question with each other in teams. As we're going to talk about, we do a lot of what we do in team situations. And so they aren't just individuals trying to get this done, but instead they do this as a team. And so for them, that also enables them. One thing, especially at our business school, that we found that a lot of people say for our graduates, that this opportunity to know what it's like to work in a team is really critical when they go out into the workplace, to not be the lone wolf, but know how to help other people and how to think and question together. And then this idea of the transformative experience. I'm going to show you one of our students had never been a leader before. And I made her a team lead. And she talked about how, what a learning experience. And she failed in many ways at the beginning. And then she had to learn and these were skills that she would learn no other way but to have had that learning experience. And it truly was transformational for her. Then you have collective dialogue. So within the teams, they have their critical thinking and questioning, but then we bring all the teams together once a week, where as a board, we work together too. And so this becomes a collective dialogue and engagement with each team working together. How do we work as a group, not just in teams? And then all of this is kind of a product at the end. So they have something that they feel like they've accomplished at the end of the semester. Now, the last one, Morris's 5 characteristics of concrete experiences. This was fascinating to me when I read his article. He literally looked at hundreds of research, articles that had been done on concrete experiences and experiential learning. And what he did was he looked at all of these different research, articles and said, what are the 5 main characteristics? What do I see throughout all of these different researchers? And what he found, these were the 5 things that he said were the main characteristics that he saw in all these different research findings. The first one was active participation. I mean, that's a little bit of a, well, duh, yes, experiential, they have to have the experience, they have to actively participate. But I love this one, knowledge placed in time and place. This is the idea that what I'm doing is something that's going to be used now. I think oftentimes in other classes that I've taught, you have them write a paper and they're really writing for you. They're trying to figure out, what does the professor want? They aren't writing for a real audience. But to have them have the opportunity to be able to say, all right, I'm writing a paper, I'm going to get it published, that brings it into a completely different knowledge space. And so to have them have that opportunity to be able to have their knowledge placed in time and place enables them to be able to also get ready for the workplace, but also to have that mindset of what I'm doing is used for an audience. Also, they have, of course, new encounters with learning, something they've never done before. And then real world problems. They have to, like I said before, they're going to run into problems. They're going to make mistakes, and let them work it out rather than you going in and fixing it. And then finally, this reflection piece, which I think is also critical and sometimes forgotten because this kind of teaching takes a lot of time. In many ways, it takes more time than the other, but it is so fun. And I guess that's the thing that I enjoy about it is, yes, it takes a lot of time, but it's things that are just rejuvenating for me. It's something that I really enjoy doing. So my experiential learning journey in terms of what I'm about to tell you about in terms of Marriott Student Review and the Measuring Success Right podcast was basically started because of our provost, our president of our university, Kevin Worthen. He gave a talk in 2016 where he asked all the deans of all the different colleges at our university and the faculty in general to start doing experiential learning. He wanted to see specific experiential learning projects in each one of the colleges at our university. And he said, experience connects theory with application and deepens our understanding of the principles and truths we learn. And so at the end of his talk, he did ask that everybody come up with an idea for an experiential learning class. And that's when the seed of this idea came to pass, where I said, all right, what can I do in a business communication setting to really have a true experiential learning, a real experiential learning experience? And that was kind of the seed that caused Marriott Student Review to grow. So we call it MSR. And if you notice, we also allow different things to happen. I'm going to talk about our latest and greatest team that we've started. But that's the positive thing about this experiential learning. It's not the same thing every single semester. Instead, I really allow the students to come up with new ideas, new ways to market, new ways to implement some of the things that we're doing. and it's going to a real worldwide audience. So we've just been going for 3 years now, and what I'm going to start with though is some of the students' thoughts. Now these, like I said, at the end of every semester, we do reflective assignments where the students reflect upon their experience. And so it's been really fun to cull and glean from those and kind of get a feel for, all right, what do I need to tweak? How do I need to make this experiential learning a better experience for each of the students? And it does change every single semester. But some of the things that the students have said in terms of active participation, this is a student who had never done website design before. And so we needed a new website. And he said, well, I'll learn how to do this. And so he was able to ask friends. He went and he talked to different professors, outside of our classroom. And he built a new site, which was pretty amazing. I mean, he was very excited. And he said, he updated on the website. He had never done this before. For him, this was a great experience, and he was happy to be part of it. And he also had a skill that he could take outside of this experience. Knowledge placed in time and place. This is one of our podcasts. She was a podcast host for Measuring Success Right. And it was interesting because also as they go about doing this, the opportunity for students to hear business, many of the people you'll see that we have on our podcast are pretty famous, are very amazing people. And so for them to be able to talk to these people and say, all right, how do you measure success? How did you get there? What kinds of positive things can you tell me as a student so that, I can also measure success correctly? All of those things have been very positive. And it's also risk-taking in terms of having that opportunity to do an interview that is on the air. It's scary. And so to be able to take risks like that is huge, but it's a real audience. It's a real opportunity for them to do something that is real. And so I agree, this experience has felt like a crash course in human optimism, resilience, and compassion. And she went on to also go into this professionally. So because of this experience, she has now become a podcast host for some other professional podcasts. This is a young man who's an engineer. He's actually now in a graduate program about, he's a biomedical engineer, and he also loves to write. And so for him, MSR allowed him to extend talents in ways he had never done before at the college, at the university. The other thing that I love about this course is so much of what we do at the university is siloed. A student goes into business and then they're stuck in that college. Oftentimes they don't even leave that one building, even though, the campus is a large campus. And so it's the opportunity in something like this to allow different majors to, in our situation, it's the business school. So he's an engineering student who never would have been involved in a podcast or never would have been involved in actually writing something that wasn't technical. And so for him to be able to come and do something that was, creative, I think also helped him to be a better biomedical engineer. And so it allows, we have design students that come in, but the design students teach the business students how to design. We have animators that come in, and they will come in and give skills that business students had no idea that they would even need to learn in a business setting. So it allows us to have all these different pieces that, they've never put together before, but they will in a real workplace situation. So they also have real world problems. This was one that all students, I think, have, is at the beginning of the semester, they'll have these amazing goals. they'll say, I want to write 3 articles, I want to do 5 podcast reviews. But then they have no idea at the beginning of the semester how much time that takes. And so that's the reason why there's constant reflection. And yet, on the other hand, as I tell the students, we're running this as a business. And so, I don't have time. It's not an excuse, because at the end of every semester, we have to publish an issue, and it needs to be something we can be proud of. And so I don't have time can't be the excuse. We have a deadline. We have a product that we have to do. So he said, I wish I had more time to dedicate to MSR. And, a lot of students will have that feeling at the end. I was able to record 2 podcasts. He wanted to do 5. He only did 2, but that was okay. We had other people that, filled in, do some editing. But I wasn't able to do as much as I had hoped. And I think this is a positive learning experience too, that, oftentimes we have a lot greater goals in the real world than we're able to accomplish. And so I feel that I met with some interesting and influential people who I hope to continue and network in the future. That's another interesting thing that's happened through this course, is that people do have networking contacts. Because of the people that they interview or the things that they're doing, they'll call people to ask about information for an article, and that allows them to have these networking experiences that oftentimes help them to get a job afterwards. Finally, we talked about critical reflection a great deal, but it's interesting, through critical reflection, oftentimes that helps people to understand, what do I want to do? I have this real world experience now. When I leave my university situation, I have a better idea of what I want to do. And this is also one of our managing editors. And she said, being a part of MSR has helped me discover what I am passionate about and where I want to go with my future. She said she never had thought before that she wanted to get a PhD. But from some of the writing that she had done and the experience that she had done through MSR, she really had a feeling of, I want to go on and get a master's degree and a doctorate because of this experience. And, she said too, I really like to write. She became one of the students that also, she won one of the contests, the ABC student writing contests. So she had put that in, and she really enjoyed it. She now has, a winning award on her resume, which is pretty powerful. Well, when we talk about transformative learning, this is the student that I was talking about, who was a team lead, who had never done a leadership position before. And she talked about how it was tricky. She had never done anything about delegating. So she had always tried to do everything herself, because as a student, you just do everything yourself. But all of a sudden, she was in charge of a team, and she had to do schedules, and she had to help people to accomplish what they had to accomplish to get something done. And so communication, delegation, knowing when and how to lead were all things that she gained through that leadership experience, which was really helpful for her. Well, I did want to just bring up, when we talk about student ratings, I'm not sure how you handle this, but at the end of every semester, students do rate us. And the administration does look at our student ratings to see how well we're doing and whether students are, feeling like they're gaining the learning experience that they want at the university level. And it was interesting. This is Hunter, and Hunter's, sometimes what happens is this is a repeatable class. And so usually the first semester that people come in, because this is totally different than anything a student has done before, I'll tell them the first semester is always rough, because it's just like a new job. You kind of have to figure out, what I want to do. You've never been in this experience before. It's asking you to do new things. And especially for students, they're not used to this kind of experience where you just say, all right, we have to accomplish this. How are you going to do it? And so the frustration is sometimes I get seniors and they only get one semester with me. And he was one of those where he was coming to the end, but he said, my first semester has been the highlight, of what he's done, which was pretty significant because he had done a lot. He was graduating. And he said, I consider working for MSR a once in a lifetime opportunity that I am deeply grateful for. And it's interesting because he was an information systems computer person. That's what he was graduating in. And he fell in love with podcasting. And so for him, he goes, he has a great voice. You're going to be hearing it in just a moment. But he was like, I want to go on NPR. Before he was always thinking he was going to do computer programming, and he does have a great job in computer programming. But this is a passion that he found from this that he's hoping to continue to do as well. Now, this is kind of a comparison of the student ratings that happen at MSR and the student ratings. These are the average student ratings for all professors at the business school. And now I could say that I am just that much better at teaching than everybody else at the business school. But I want you to know that in terms of my other classes, I am right where that average is. So I'm not, if I just did my other classes, I would be right at that same point. But it's interesting to me to see how with this experiential learning class, what a difference it makes in terms of student ratings. You can see these are the averages, but every single semester, it's significantly higher when we view what people feel, what these students feel about their learning experience as well. Well, I did want to talk about some of the ways this has grown and changed over the semesters. We started with just a journal. And initially, that was the focus, was business writing. And then we had an interesting experience with that. We also got to do a mission statement. And this mission statement is something that we're constantly changing. And it also helps students to understand what a mission statement is. How do you gain one? As a matter of fact, Parker, I'm hoping he'll talk about some of the things that he's done to help us craft different mission statements and understanding and reevaluating every semester. But our initial mission statement was connecting the leaders of tomorrow with the issues of today. Now, we have these different teams, and each of these teams are in charge of their area. So we have a web team, an editing team that does also the writing, but also the editing, a podcast team, a design team, and then marketing and advertising. And we found that all of these really help each other. They are not, like I said before, they're not siloed. So for instance, if somebody in the editing team wants to do a podcast, great. They can help each other. If somebody on the design team wants to learn sound design, fabulous, please do, one of the podcasts, help, edit one of the podcasts through sound. So, and marketing, everybody can help with marketing. So we do have team leads and we do have teams that work in these areas, but it's also very fluid in terms of, allowing people to be involved in other teams as well, especially if they need extra help. So maybe one team this semester, for instance, the team this semester that was kind of fledging, there was only like 2 or 3 students that were in that team, was marketing and advertising. And so what we did to help fix that was to have one person out of each team that would also help with marketing. So these teams are not, set in stone. Instead, it allows them to have that opportunity to learn different skills. Now, this is kind of what some of the issues have looked like that we've been doing. We usually have a theme to each issue. At the beginning, also, you need to set expectations. At the beginning, you're going to see how things have grown. At the beginning, people weren't reading us. Literally, people were not reading us. And so then we had to tackle that problem. I mean, we were like an entrepreneurial setting. We were starting out, and we had to figure out, what do you do when nobody knows who you are or that you even exist? What are some things, strategies that we can use? And so that's really helpful from semester to semester in terms of seeing the growth. And if things dip down, then how do I bring it back up? All of those are real world issues. So at the beginning, we were not being read. And so I threw that out to the students. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? And so they did a study. They went out to business students and students in general and said, how do you get your information? How do you get your news? How do you understand what's happening in the business world? And what we found through that study was most of the students, other than being forced to read things at a university setting, most of them gain it through listening, through podcasts. And so after that study that the students did, we went, okay, well, let's start a podcast. And that's how the podcast came to be, was through that experience. And having the two together has helped both of them to gain more listenership and readership. It's been interesting to see how that has been the case. Now, sorry. This shows our downloads. So we have multiple places, and this is also something that we learned, especially in this digital world, is that you can't just have one place for your information. So we use Scholars Archive, which is the BYU B Press. We use B Press, and B Press is the largest academic publisher. The reason why we like B Press is that we have great SEO on Google Scholar. So when somebody types in, for instance, supply chain, we are one of the first couple of articles that come up. So this shows our downloads that are happening on, Scholars Archive as a, academic publisher through B Press. And if you notice, when we were starting out, we were lucky to have maybe, less than 100. I mean, we would oftentimes, only have 100 a month. And over the last 2.5 years, we're now over 2,000, a month. And so it's been really fun to see the change in terms of, it's pretty impressive in just a short amount of time to see that. And that's also, it's great being on a winning team, to see that kind of a thing. So I also wanted to show you this. We also get, kind of a picture worldwide of who's downloading us and who's reading us. And it's been interesting to see this, and I love to show students this because, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we have 79 readers. I think that's so fun, to say, look at all the people that read us. One thing I wanted to show you though on this, you notice 10,000, that's because that's where BYU is. But the interesting thing is some people in Boston really love us. I see a lot of downloads in the Boston area. London, they really like to read us too. But, and if you notice the people that are reading us, we have pretty good readership even in Africa. But the one area of the world that we really were not hitting was South America. And so we had a lot of Spanish speakers at BYU, and we also have a lot of people that are studying at BYU who are from Central and South America. And so what we decided to do is to start a new team, and this is just started this semester. We just unveiled this, but we have a translation team. And we're starting with translating this in Spanish, but we also have students that are, Chinese, who speak other languages as well. And this is amazing because it really helps students to understand the problems of localization, that they can come in and, so we're not just doing this in English, but we're trying to take this worldwide. How can we do this from a localization situation? It's not going to look completely the same. When we look at these different audiences, it needs to look different. It needs to feel different, even though some of the main things that we're teaching or writing about, or even our podcast, is going to be, and we do have a Spanish podcast now as well. So this is our website. You can look at us at, any time on the web if you want to look it up. MarriottStudentReview.org and measuringsuccess.com. Those two are separate, but they're also linked together. So if you go to one or the other, it will take you to both. This is also, we're on Facebook, and it's also wonderful for students to understand analytics. So they're able to go look at website analytics and say, okay, how can we fix this? We can go on Facebook and look at the analytics and say, all right, this one worked, this one didn't. When we did this advertising, people really liked it, others didn't. We also are on Instagram, and one of the positive things that we've been doing recently to up our followers on Instagram is that we have been doing giveaways. And that has been really fun for students to be able to do giveaways on Instagram to get more followers. And it has caused our Instagram following amazing. I mean, so give away some earbuds. It's amazing how many people, will be following you after that. So they've enjoyed those kind of marketing experiences to figure out, okay, how do we do things? We also have gotten some film students to get involved and do small animations for us for Instagram. We're even thinking of getting on TikTok and doing some, small, little animations that would go along with some of our articles, our, kind of talk about some of our podcasts. All of those different things we're hoping to also incorporate. So this is our business blog. What we found was we now have so many articles that we don't have enough for publication. So we started the business blog to allow us every week to be able to publish other articles as well. And I read the Wall Street Journal every day, The Economist weekly, and I have to admit, every time I read Marriott Saturday Reads, and a new article is up every Saturday, I have to admit, it's good. I'm always so impressed with the material. I think, okay, I read The Economist, I read this, I get as much good material from this as I do from The Economist. So it has been fun for the students to have an actual publication on their resume as well. So once they're published either on the blog or this is also published on Scholars Archive. So Google Scholar will also point people to our blog as well as our actual issue. This allows students to actually put on their resume the things that they've had published on Marriott Saturday Reads as well as MSR. Well, this is the translation team, and this kind of shows you some of the new articles that just came up. Like I said, we just unveiled this within the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's just brand new, but it's taken us about 6 months to get it to the point where we could unveil it. And that also has been a learning experience, that you don't just have an idea and go with it. Instead, you have to do a lot of preparation work, because I don't want, and this is something I tell students, I said, look, we're in it for the long haul. I want Marriott Student Review to still be here 10, 20, 30 years from now. And so in order to do that, we have to be consistent. So I won't let something happen until, there's a couple of months worth of material. There's things that they've shown me that, yes, they're committed to this, and it's not going to be just a semester project and then it doesn't happen anymore. So, they did this and they worked really hard to get the team together and to get this started. Well, I've talked plenty. I'm going to let Parker talk a little bit from a student viewpoint in terms of, as the managing editor, he's been over the issues, and he's also been over the blog, and he's done also marketing. We have 2 managing editors, and they split, the different teams, and those are the teams that he's been involved in.
So great to meet you all. To give you a little bit of idea of my background, I am an accounting student in the business school, and I have been one of the managing editors for the Marriott Student Review for the past year. And before that, I was a part of the editing team and had the opportunity to work with them for a semester. So when I first came to MSR, it was striking to me the difference between this experiential learning and traditional classroom setting, because before coming to MSR, I really hadn't had any experiential learning styled classes. And so for me, one of the things that I noticed from the beginning was the ambiguity and how it was different. I had to kind of work on my own. There wasn't a clear expectation given to me, for example, like with a paper where it said I had to write this and this and this, and my professor was looking for certain grammatical errors or certain content or a certain length. It was a lot more up to me to determine kind of what I wanted to do and how was I going to accomplish that working with the team. And so from the beginning, I noticed it was different. And from the beginning, I saw the opportunity that would come from MSR for me as a personal development and learning leadership, and also as a professional development experience. Like Dr. Richardson said, I had the opportunity to work with students from across campus and to be a part of a team of now 20, 25 students that we have is an incredible experience for me to be able to learn how people outside of accounting and outside of business, how they think. We have, like, for example, like the editing team. Well, now I've been able to interact with a lot of editors and to learn how they think and how they look at things. And just the opportunity that we've had to grow MSR has been one of the highlights of my college experience, really, because I noticed as well shortly after joining MSR that being a student actually gives us a lot of opportunity to talk with important people, like, for example, with our podcast, because people want to share their experience with students. They want to impart of their wisdom and to help students get to where these students want to go. And so as students, and I know Jake will talk a little bit more about this when he speaks as well, but we have a unique opportunity to access important people and to learn from their experiences. And so that has been an awesome experience for me as well as part of MSR. I would say professionally, this opportunity has been excellent for me too, to be able to lead teams and to be able to put on my resume or to talk about in job interviews that I have been leading a team of 20 people and that we work to publish a journal, and just how unique that is compared to the other experiences other students have had. And one thing that I've noticed increasingly is as important as just my GPA is in college, that in the real world, people who are recruiting students and interviewing students are increasingly looking for, okay, yes, you have good grades, but what else are you? What makes you you? What has defined, what are some of the soft skills that you've learned? How have you demonstrated leadership? And the Marriott Student Review has been an excellent opportunity for me to learn those skills and then to talk about them as I've gone through job interviews or as I've put it on my resume. It's been an excellent experience for me. And really, like, the reception that we've had has been incredible. Like, since the time that I began as managing editor about a year ago, we, like Dr. R has mentioned, like Dr. Richardson has mentioned, we've been able to really grow things. And starting with the blog, I mean, we've been able to partner with a lot of other students on campus, and a lot of there's a class in the business school that's a writing class that all of the business students have to take. And so we've been able to partner with them to publish their articles. So now, as opposed to just involving 10 to 20 students who are actually working with Marriott Student Review, now we're able to publish the work of at least 10, 15, 20, 30 other students every semester through our blog. And we've been able to reach out to a Spanish-speaking audience now through our translation team. And so the experience that we've been able to have has been remarkable. And overall, it has been one of the highlights of my college experience so far.
Thank you so much, Parker. And I love working with Parker too. He's just been, an amazing leader, really helped us. And like I said, he's done a lot to help us focus on what our mission statement is. He's done a fabulous job. I let the students teach too. They lead the class. And so, Parker is the one that leads our board meeting, instead of me getting up and telling them what to do. Parker is the one that leads them, and he has done a wonderful leadership job. It's been wonderful having him. I just to quickly go forward, because I want Jake to have at least 5 minutes too. When we started the podcast, we didn't know what we were doing. We really didn't. It was an idea. I had never done a podcast before, so I was learning too. And we had all of these questions, and we had to find out answers. And it was wonderful learning experience for me, because like I said, we were in new territory. And so it was fun to see. This is Measuring Success Right. You need to have, we use Libsyn as the place that we have our podcast go, and then it goes out to, you can find us anywhere, on iTunes, on Pandora, Spotify. It basically publishes it to all of those different areas. But I did want to show you, this is our downloads from our podcast, and you see it's the same kind of a curve. We've only been doing this for, it's been about 2 years now, and we've been trying to stay pretty much every week a podcast comes out. Even during the summer, we don't stop during the summer. We don't stop during vacation, because once you get a listenership, you have to continue doing that every week. And so that's been also good. They can do it before they do, you have to schedule it. So, if you look at the summer and you say, all right, I'm not going to have as many people in the summer, well, great. Winter semester, you just need to do more podcasts. So that's also like a real business. You need to look ahead and understand what you need to do. But I did want to let Jake go, because he's been, I did just want to play just a small clip from, we did have Mitt Romney recently on our podcast. And as Parker said, people really, I have the students ask and find people. I don't. And it's amazing how the power of being a student, in that they can ask people like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney would say no to me 100%. I've met him a couple of times, but he doesn't know me at all. And I have to admit, a student asked Mitt, and he said, sure, I'd be happy to, which was such a surprise. So let me just play you the beginning. Also, listen to the music. I hope Jake talks a little bit about that too, because that has transformed too. Our first music on our podcast was something a student had written, and we had some interesting comments about it. And so we've also changed our music too, to sound different over the 2 years. Can you hear that okay?
Welcome to Measuring Success Right, the official podcast of the Marriott Student Review, a podcast for students by students, where we connect the leaders of tomorrow with the issues of today.
Well, you heard just a little bit. I wanted to give some time to Jake, but if you're interested, you can find this podcast easily. And I think it's been fun for them to be able to interview such amazing people. So I'm going to turn the time over to Jake.
And so I wanted to talk about my experience joining the podcast team. And I'll be kind of short because, we do want those questions and answers at the end. And so I met Dr. R and found out that I could join MSR and get class credit for sound engineering. And so while, yes, I'm studying business, I love music production. So I've been producing bands for about 10 years. And so I said, sure, I'll come get free class credit to engineer for your class. Sounds good to me. And so I joined thinking that this would just be kind of a fun free credit experience. I didn't anticipate this impacting my business career at all. And when I joined, my business studies are all about helping businesses develop their brand and then build themselves. And so when I joined the podcast, it was still pretty new and we were still developing as a brand. And so besides getting to edit the episodes, I found very quickly that I was applying the things that I'd brought from my business classes. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And I got to start working, like Parker said, with people from different disciplines, with people studying journalism and communication. And that was a new thing for me. Normally, somebody asks a business question, and I'm in a classroom full of other business students. So I don't really offer that much, uniqueness in that setting. But in this setting, I was the business guy. And so they would ask questions and I can answer from the business front. And then we'd talk about communication skills, and the journalism students would chip in. And so we all got to bring our unique skills and learn from each other. And that was really cool. And then when I went to interview for my business career, when I was trying to get a job, the main thing we talked about during those interviews was MSR. Sure, I'd done, projects in class. I'd made my teachers really happy with my presentations, but they didn't care about that. So I kind of felt bad about that. I'd worked so hard on those group projects, but they really cared about MSR. You've been making a product. You've been working with the team. And I ended up, getting the offers that I was looking for because I could say, hey, for the past year, I've been helping this small new product, this new podcast build. And this is how we've done it. We've used analytics and, I just kind of go down the list of business tactics that I'd used. And, that was huge for my career. I don't think I'm the most marketable job applicant, but I ended up getting a pretty good offer based off of MSR. And so, yeah, it's been really fun. I'll leave a lot of time for the Q&A, but I was just shocked at how working with different people and building on my music skills and my business skills actually really helped my career. So it's been an awesome experience.
Thank you, Jake. And one of the reasons why it's so awesome is my awesome students. The students that have been involved in this have been incredible. And I just wanted to reiterate what Jake has said. Basically, these students say this over and over again over the last 2.5, 3 years that we've been doing this, that the number one thing when they go in to get a job is people ask them about their experience with MSR. And so because of this, I've seen my students get, we're talking top level jobs in business, but also many of them have gone on because of their writing experience, actually publishing. They've gone on to, get into Yale for a PhD program, Duke, Columbia. They've gone into the top graduate schools here because of their MSR experience. And they always say, when I go in for an interview, that's what they ask about on my resume. And so, so it also is something that makes them head and shoulders above other students when they go in for job interviews as well. So that's the end. We've also won some awards, which has been, fun to do. And this has just been the most fun I have had as a professor.